Hello, everyone. It's a great pleasure for me to be here among the respected experts of the Caucasus affairs. And I would like to thank Dr. Mammadov and his respected colleagues for inviting me here. The topic I would like to discuss about is the new regional structure in the making in the South Caucasus and the role of Iran in these new equations. During more than the last 2 years, Iran's foreign policy has experienced a new, it could be said, unprecedented activism in its northern neighborhood, in Central Asia and the Caucasus. Maybe this active policy could be only compared with the first years after the Soviet Union, in which Iran was trying to initiate close relations with the former Soviet republics and to maintain its influence in the region. However, at the time, Iran's foreign policy was affected more by ideological motives. This approach sparked sensitivities among the governments of the region and hindered a real openness in the relations. However, this time, Iran's approach has been seen to be based on a pragmatist viewpoint, and Iran is trying to define the relations with the region based on the common interests with the regional states. The most important actual reflection of this approach has been the realization of projects such as Central Asia-Iran Railroad and the serious effort by Iran to be part of China's One Belt, One Road initiative. Meanwhile, the issue of Iran becoming a full member of SCO has been raised more seriously than ever, and also discussions have been raised about the possibility of Iran joining the Eurasian Economic Union. In the Caucasus, the long-debated issue of North-South transport corridor has been seriously taken into consideration. From the positions taken by the highest-ranking officials of Iran, Azerbaijan, and Russia, it is obvious that the corridor is a high priority for the three countries. On the bilateral level also, one of the most successful set of Iran's interactions have been seen in the South Caucasus in the last 2 years. One good example is that Iran currently has visa-free regulations with Georgia and Armenia, and since the last year, Azerbaijan has considerably facilitated the visa regulations for the Iranian citizens. It's both a reflection of a successful trust-building process on the highest levels and also could provide a basis for more interactions. However, among all, I think Iran-Azerbaijan-Russia summit in Baku in August 2016 was a very important sign, indicating that a new set of interactions is being prevailed in the Caucasus, which could determine the future of the region. A new pragmatist-based integrational process that contains not only transport and economic issues, but also issues such as regional security and policy coordination. My main argument is that a new regional structure has been establishing in the Caucasus, the main pillars of which could be Iran, Russia, and Azerbaijan. But why Iran's new foreign policy has been successful in Central Eurasia, especially in the South Caucasus? First, it should be noted that almost all of Iran's diplomatic focus during the first 2 years of President Rouhani's administration was on the nuclear negotiations with the 6 world powers, which ended in success. Thus, serious maneuvering on the other cases was delayed. On the other hand, because Iran was for long engaged in a negative course with the West, the South Caucasus countries, which have for long enjoyed good relations with the Western countries, especially the US, had serious reservations to expand the relations with Iran. Second, if we have a deeper look into the nature and the structure of the South Caucasus regional order, the structure of the regional order in the region and the former Soviet space in general has been a rather unipolar one and greatly built on Moscow playing the role of a nexus for regional interactions. At least, Moscow itself has been claiming a special role in the region as its near abroad, trying to control or at least monitor different trends in its southern neighborhood. In this context, nations that enjoy favorable relations with Russia are predisposed to benefit from more room for maneuvering in the South Caucasus, as well as Central Asia. In this equation, Iran's increasingly positive relations with Russia in recent years have thus been an important factor in improvement of Tehran's relations with the region. Third, Iran's approach toward the South Caucasus has, under President Rouhani, become greatly pragmatic and based on pursuit of economic interests. This is evident in the nature of the agreements and collaboration between the sides, which greatly focuses on boosting trade and economic cooperation. This in turn eases the long-standing concerns among the Caucasus countries about alleged ideological dimensions of Iran's foreign policy. Fourth, through the past years, the countries in the South Caucasus, especially Azerbaijan and Georgia, have been actively trying to keep a balance between their relations with Russia and the US. In other words, while they have kept their favorable relations with the West, they have been cautious not to become a sole sphere of Western influence. This balanced approach has provided the necessary conditions to freely develop relations with a wide range of countries, both in their neighborhood and far beyond. So, Iran is now facing with less negative US influence on the Caucasus countries regarding their relations with the Islamic Republic. Fifth, cultural factors play an important role in shaping Iran's relations with its neighbors. The South Caucasus nations have strong historical and civilizational ties with Iran. There is an absence of historical and ethnic feuds here. Thus, the social infrastructure in these countries is comparably rather conducive to the development of relations with Iran. And why the regional structure in the South Caucasus is evolving? First of all, it's related to the evolution in the wider international system and the role of the global and regional players within this framework. In fact, the international system has been in the recent years in a transitional period, the most important reflection of which is the rise and increased importance of new global centers of power, and also the emerging of a new space for regional actors to act more freely, pursue their interests in a rather new way, and making new alliances and alignments. The trend we are currently witnessing regarding the US foreign policy entails a shift towards reducing America's international commitments and to make the US allies become more involved in securing their own interests, which was previously mainly preserved by the US. The most important reflection of this approach is the US insistence that its NATO allies should pay more for their defense. Therefore, it's anticipated that the image of America as a reliable guarantor of the security of its allies will gradually diminish. As a result, the European Union will probably emerge as a more independent center of global power, and at the same time, more and more smaller US allies will tend to diversify their sources of foreign support in order to keep themselves secure against any unpredictable shift in the US policy toward the issues which are considered important for their interests and even survival. Meanwhile, China, as an emerging great power, has been involved in creating a set of international Beijing-centered global interactions which would eventually shift many important global trends toward this favorable direction. Given China's huge economic power, these networks have proved to be mutually beneficial, both for China and the other parties involved. Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, One Belt One Road Initiative, and also promoting interactions within the framework of BRICS and SCO are the most visible representation of these trends. At the same time, Russia has also showed signs of different approach toward international interactions, especially in the former Soviet space. In parallel with its long-standing security considerations in its immediate neighborhood, Moscow is showing an increasing inclination to build and secure its own set of networks using the old and new multilateral structures. Eurasian Economic Union is the most important instance of the new frameworks, with North-South corridor is also more recently added to the list. And at the same time, like China, it has shown interest in empowering BRICS and SCO. A very important consequence of these parallel trends is that economic and trade interactions are gaining more and more geopolitical significance, geopoliticization of trade, meaning that such multilateral networks, which have mostly economic orientations, are becoming assets for the rising powers to secure their geopolitical interests, to achieve more influence in different regions, and to, in fact, create counterbalancing alignments all around the world. In this framework, as a regional power with a great geopolitical importance, Iran has a role to play in the initiatives related to both Russia and China. Iran has signed agreements with China to be actively involved in Belt and Road Initiative and also is eager to realize the North-South corridor. Moreover, after the 2015 nuclear deal, Iran gained more opportunities to work with European nations in the economic sphere. The point is that the same concept of geopoliticization of trade is also applicable to Iran's approaches. By participating in such multilateral networks, Iran not only could secure an acceptable amount of foreign investment in its infrastructures and to gain economic benefits, but at the same time is building security and decreasing its level of vulnerability, but by tying its own strategic interests to those of the world great powers. So it will be more and more difficult in the future to ignore Iran in the international trade or economic interactions, or, as some people say, punish it by means such as sanctions. So economic multilateralism could enhance national security in a general definition. As such, the geopolitical status of the South Caucasus connecting the East and the West is a valuable gift for the countries of the region to take their own roles in this whole new global arena. Within the region itself, those who have already managed to establish necessary domestic infrastructures as well as a favorable external environment by their foreign policy could benefit the most from this trend. I believe that among the three Caucasian nations, only Azerbaijan has been completely successful to do so by bringing economic prosperity and modern infrastructures home, as well as a balanced, pragmatist foreign policy toward both the East and the West. So, it could play the central role in all those international multilateral frameworks and multilateral networks, which are somehow related to the South Caucasus. So, Russia as a great power with its defined set of interests and initiatives, Iran as a country at the center of two sets of East-West and North-South geo-economical interactions, and Azerbaijan as a country inside the region with the most favorable domestic and foreign conditions could well manage the future interactions in the region, and the fact that they have already come to a kind of understanding in this regard is a sign indicating that the process has already begun. Another important point is related to the regional security. Given the recent trends in global terrorism and related issues, the three countries have a common goal in preserving the security in the region through coordinated efforts. If realized, it could be the next upgraded phase of the regional cooperation. However, one could not ignore the role of Turkey as another influential actor in the Caucasus neighborhood. By the way, as the political agendas of Ankara, Moscow, and Tehran in the Middle East is becoming convergent more than ever, thanks mostly to the recent trend in US policy toward Syria, especially the Kurdish issue, and also the Qatar crisis, which is again somehow related to the US moves in the region, it is expected that the three countries will not have contrasting agendas in the other regions as well. One should also remind that Turkey itself is becoming involved in the very same multilateral networks as Iran's, mostly the One Belt, One Road initiative. If Turkey decides to be more actively involved, it could become the fourth pillar of the regional structure in the making in the South Caucasus. Nonetheless, everything is dependent on whether the three parties are really willing to keep their contacts at the highest level and to stay committed to prioritize their common goals over those contrasting ones, and to keep a pragmatist view toward their bilateral and multilateral interactions. Thanks for your attention.